guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-filled review and gush of Frozen Tides by Morgan Rose. So first off, a copy of Frozen Tides was provided to me by Penguin for review, but you guys know that I have loved this series for the past year. This is the 4th book in the Fallen Kingdom series, which is a 6-book fantasy series. I've done a full spoiler-free review on the first 3 books if you want to go check that out. I am not doing a spoiler-free review on this book because it's the 4th book in the series. I feel like anybody that's watching this review is going to have read the series, and there's really nothing to say about this that's non-spoiler without spoiling the rest of the series. Like, I can't really say anything. I like the characters, I like the world, and the plot gets better and better each book. That's the extent of my spoiler-free thoughts on it. First off, let me talk about the world building. I love that we got the giant map expanded in the front of the book. As soon as I opened that, I was so surprised to see that we were actually going to go to Krasia, that we're going to see a lot of these places and all the places that were mentioned and are going to be mentioned further on in the series. I love learning about Krasia through Amara, and I loved seeing their different customs and how different it was. I actually felt a lot of sympathy for Amara, a character who I hated in Gathering Darkness. As soon as I had a chapter in her perspective, I was like, this is my new queen and I love her. And while she's ruthless, I adore her, but I'll talk about her more later. I love that through her, we got to see a lot of how the Krasian society works, how there's different things like you can kill your children, how men are much more valued than women, and how Amara has really fought tooth and nail to be respected, and it's still really not something that's happening. So it's a beautiful place, filled with beautiful scenery, but there's a lot of kind of bad, evil things happening in there as well. I love that in every book we get more expanded maps. That in the first book, Fallen Kingdoms, we just had Mythica, and it was a very simple map, and as we went on, we get more and more things added to the map until finally in this book we get kind of an explosion of the map and everything around Mythica and how Mythica is affecting the rest of the world. I think that is so cool. I do think that this book was more plot-driven than character-driven. I think Gathering Darkness, with all the things that happened there, with the relationships, with the professions of kind of love and people realizing things and how they feel about people, there was a lot of character growth and character development in that book. A lot of character interactions and friendships and losses of friendships and everything else was a lot more character focused. I feel like this book was a lot more plot focused, that we dealt a lot more with what's going to happen in the rest of the series. I didn't feel personally that was any kind of filler. I think that was all very necessary and it was still very interesting. But I do feel like some of the character things that I loved in Gathering Darkness were missing in here. Not in a bad way necessarily, because like I said, I loved the plot stuff, but I feel like there were some things that were missing as far as character development, relationships and stuff. With some things were also so great, and I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. As far as characters with these books so far, I feel like Morgan always kind of has a star player for each book, and I really kind of like how that works. That's something that I feel like I noticed. Maybe I'm just seeing things that aren't there, but I feel like every book, aside from Fallen Kingdoms, because you're first being introduced to all the characters, so you really can't have a star player in that one. But every book since then, we've had one of the main core 4 kind of being the star of the show in that particular book. So I feel like Rebel Spring was a big Jonas book. Jonas was doing a lot. He was learning a lot of things were happening to Jonas. I feel like Gathering Darkness was a Cleo book. I feel like a lot of things were happening with her. She was the cause of a lot of things going on, and she was a big focus, and I think she had a lot of chapters in that book as well. And I feel like Frozen Tides is definitely a Magnus book. I feel like he's moving and shaking a lot of things. He was doing a ton in this book. He was really stepping up. He was having a lot of feelings. A lot of things were happening to him, and his life was in pretty much constant disarray, which it's been the entire time, but also in this book I feel like a lot of things finally came to a head, and I feel like he was the star of this book. So I found it very interesting that we led with a Gaius Prologue. That I was not expecting whatsoever, and we saw how Gaius was a nice kid, how he used to be kind of like a Magnus, where he was shaped into something kind of horrible, probably by his mother from what we've learned. That was interesting, not something that I expected. I still wish we got a little more from Gaius. I still want to see a lot more of his motivations, but those things are slowly finally being revealed, that his mother was a witch, that she led him away from his love, who was Cleo's mom, which I totally called as soon as he started talking about the love of his life that he had, and that he had to give her up and whatever. I remembered Magnus and Cleo talking about the island from before, and that Cleo's mom went there, and Magnus's dad went there, and it was kind of weird, and it was dropped in. And Morgan does that. She will drop little things in, and then they'll come back around, you're like, what? And I love that. She'll drop things in earlier books and stuff. It's so complex the way she weaves everything together, and I definitely picked that out, and I was like, it's gonna be Cleo's mom. And I was actually texting with Lainey and Riley, and they're like, just keep reading, and I was like, I'm totally right, it was totally Cleo's mom. So that gives me a lot of feelings for numerous reasons. One, the fact that the families have been kind of intertwined for so long. Feelings. And two, with Magnus and Cleo, like, fate, okay? Their families were kept apart before, and now they're coming together because their parents were in love at one point, and they were torn apart, and Magnus and Cleo are together now because it's fated. I just have a lot of feelings about it. Speaking of Magnus and Cleo, let's just get that out of the way right now because I really can't focus on anything else until I talk about that particular thing and all of the different plots surrounding them and my absolute love for them and how much I'm squealing because this was so good and finally my babies. So most of these tabs admittedly are of Cleo and Magnus having conversations where they're walking in circles, they're pretending to hate each other, and it's just so heartbreaking to watch them do this over and over because we all know as readers that they have feelings for one another and that they just keep running in circles, like not admitting it to each other, to themselves, to anyone else. Then they have friends, mostly Nick with Cleo, saying like, you can't do this, oh my gosh, and putting his nose in her business when he has no idea about anything and he has no room to talk about being with people that they shouldn't be with, although I do love him and Asher, like, so much. I'm talking about, like, you know, he revealed a lot of stuff to that family that he shouldn't have, that screwed Cleo over, so he really has no room to talk about, like, dealing with enemies and changing opinions on people, and people can grow and mature and everything else. Number one. So, it was really frustrating to have them looking at each other all the time, making pointed looks at one another across the room, and having feelings, and then talking about it and not getting anywhere. So frustrating. My little heart was like singing when Cleo finally made the speech about Magnus and how he's going to be a good leader and rallying everyone around him. I was so worried that he was going to get kind of proven right when he was starting to like think like, oh, she's going to stab me in the back, blah, blah, and that she would say something and he would twist it a different way because that's always how they work. And when he saw her making the speech, I just have a lot of emotions about it, and the fact that like they're finally becoming a couple that can back each other up and that can support each other and that trust each other. Like there's a long way to go, obviously still like a lot of things that happen with them, but they're really starting to make progress and they're my precious, precious babies. Then when he went after her to save her from his dad, like I just can't even. And the warrior princess that she is, like escapes by herself, like goes out in the ice, climbs down a damn castle, and runs off into the wilderness. And I knew when he found that cabin that they were going to find each other there. I didn't think that what happened was going to happen, but I knew that when he went there, she was going to be there. And of course she was, and I was like screaming and squealing, and I couldn't even process my emotions when they finally had the big reveal. And he says he loves her, and she says she loves him, and they, like, start making out, and they have all those precious love feelings, and, I cannot. Of course, they would have a sexual rendezvous in a cabin when the world is completely going to shit, because, of course, they've been denying their emotions for so long that they can't even help it. I had to reread that chapter, like, 4 times, because I couldn't tab it as I was reading it, because I just couldn't even believe that I was reading it. I had not even crossed my fingers for them to get together until, like, the end of book 5. Like, I was thinking that it wasn't even going to happen. We were still going to have this back and forth, which is fine with me because I prefer slow burn anyway. And I didn't want them to get together and then break up and then get back together. Like, I didn't want any of that drama. So I feel like this is long enough in the series that that won't happen. Fingers crossed. But I was having so many emotions and I still can't even process what I read. I love, too, that there were so many ties to the quote from Gathering Darkness where he was telling her that she's the only light he sees anymore. And there's a lot of quotes about light and her being his light. The fact that he said she was his princess, she was his goddess, she was his light, she was his everything, like, I cannot even. How OTP is my OTP? I love that they also both almost killed Gaius. Like, that is one of the things that I am most excited about in the series, is for Gaius to finally find his demise. I'm surprised that he is still making it this far. I was really convinced that he was going to for sure die in this book, and he's not dead. I wish that he was. I'm thinking he's not, obviously. I keep holding out hope that maybe he is, but I think he's going to end up coming back around and being a big pain in the ass. So that is upsetting, and I really want one of the girls to kill Gaius. Like, that is my dream. I also would be totally fine with Magnus killing him, because I think that would be like a nice full circle kind of thing, but at the same time, Gaius is such a misogynistic prick that I really want him to be killed by one of the girls because he completely still underestimates them. It's insane. So I really want them to take him out. But if Magnus were to do it, I wouldn't be upset either. Going back to my earlier talking about Amara, I love her. I did not think I was going to like her at all. If you would have told me before I read this book that I would have started kind of favoring Amara and seeing her point of view, although she's still ruthless, I completely understand why she is, why she's had to be that way, why her society has made her into that person, why she would feel that way about men and everything else. I still don't quite forgive her for what she did to Felix. Felix has become one of my favorite characters in the series, like right up behind Cleo and Magnus. I think Felix is my number 3 favorite character. I love him so much. I loved him in Gathering Darkness. I didn't think I could love him more, and I do. I would be genuinely upset if he were to meet his demise. When we were in the dungeon with him and he was having a breakdown, like this guy who's a very capable assassin, who's shown that he's a very capable assassin over and over. That's what I really like too, is like, this is an assassin in a YA series that is ruthless, that is an assassin. There's so many assassins out there in YA fiction that you never really see them being an assassin. You see them more being a good person, and assassins are morally gray characters. So I need my assassins to be killing people and to have a ruthless backbone, and he's definitely that. So to see him breaking down in the dungeon, my poor, precious baby, I love him so much. He's crying, and he sees Jonas, and Jonas saves him, and he's crying, and it's like not a big deal. Like, nobody's like, oh my god, why is he being such like a baby? Like, he had a rough time of it, and he got his eye taken, and all because of Amara. And while I still, like I said, I love her, and I was starting to really kind of ship them, and I still kind of do in a weird, messed up way, but there's really no coming back from that, because she literally pretty much killed him. Like, he was gonna die. She was putting him in his grave and covering him up with dirt. Like, that's what happened. So I know that I really can't, but I have a lot of hope for them, and it's gone, but I love him so, so much, and I'm so glad that he's reunited with everybody. He's so great, and he brings a lot to the table, and I wasn't expecting that from a character like him. I thought that he was going to be just like a one-off when he arrived, and that he was going to die very quickly, and the fact that he's still around gives me a lot of feelings, and I hope he stays around, and I hope he makes it till the end. Him, Cleo, and Magnus have to make it until the end. Like, everybody else, I'd be upset, but I'd be fine. Like, if any of them, I'm gonna have a big problem. I can't even talk about it. I can't even talk about it. Oh my god, my precious, precious children. Then we have Jonas, who's really taken constant hits since the beginning of the series. And this book, especially in the first half, I wasn't feeling like he was doing much of anything. He was struggling a lot. He almost died again. Like, dude, get it together. And also, I wasn't a huge fan of his Lysandra revelation that he was in love with her. I don't see it. Where are the receipts? I don't see it. He never had those feelings for her. He always viewed her as a sister. So I don't really like that kind of plot twist that he suddenly realized he was in love with her. Even right before he realized he was in love with her, he said, like, I forgot about her as soon as I saw Cleo. And while I don't have Cleo and Jonas as my OTP, I still kind of ship them. So I'm okay with that, actually, with him kind of being obsessed with her. And that's so obvious that he completely forgot about Lysandra, and for him to conveniently suddenly be in love with her right before she dies, I don't really like that much at all. And the fact that she's kind of contributing to his man pain, no, like, I really would have rather her stayed around. I really would have liked her to just be single, and maybe she was crushing on him, but whatever. I was kind of okay with him just being single. Like, I don't need all of my people to be paired up, and I feel like Jonas needs to just chill and not. He's probably gonna fall in love with Olivia. That's probably going to be a thing. I can see it. I can see it already. But I do like that he was finally going to take charge, that he has this, like, revenge plot now over more than he did before. I mean, he already had that, but you know what I mean. So he's really going to be, hopefully, a lot more useful in the future. I also like that he pretty much at the end stood up for Cleo when Nick revealed to Theon's magical identical twin that popped out of nowhere. Theon is such a thorn in my side. But anyway, I'll get back to that. I like that he turned around at Nick and Jonas was like, are you gonna create issues here, like, over a few that you've had? Like, you need to chill. We're all supposed to be, like, in an alliance. Like, I don't care if Magnus dies. I don't like him either, but, like, dude, chill. You're causing issues. So I love that about him. And I hope that things get better for him, because he's had it real rough, and poor guy needs a break. I don't think he's gonna get one, but he really does. So going back to the Theon twin thing, like, ugh, it makes me so upset. Of course, we have a twin that now wants retribution to kill Magnus when Magnus and Cleo are finally together, and we're gonna have him show up looking like Theon, and her probably being like, oh my god, like, I don't know what to think now, and da-da-da-da. And if she even thinks for a second that she can fall in love with him and that he can replace Theon, like, no, stop. Stop it. I think it's just going to be one of those roadblocks on the way to the end of the series, and them still being endgame, but that they can't just be happy. Of course, no one can be happy in Fallen Kingdoms for more than, like, 2 pages, right? So I think it's just gonna be a road bump for them, and I'm gonna hate it. Every second of it, because this guy is gonna go to kill Magnus, and like, dude, you haven't been around and seen what's happened, okay? You have no idea. Like, Magnus was doing self-defense in the first book, even though it was like, it was a douchey thing to do, and whatever. Like, stop. I'm so upset about that twist in like the last like 10 pages. Like, what even? It makes me so mad still a few days later. As far as Lucia, nothing really changed with me for her. I still find her incredibly annoying, although she got a little bit better here and there. There were snippets of parts where I was thinking like maybe I could start liking her at some point, or at least just being neutral and not completely hating her. Like, she does a lot of things that just really piss me off, but I think she could maybe improve. When she saved Magnus, you know, against the fire god, when she stood up to the fire god, when she was telling him, like, stop being a baby, that was cool. Although I don't like her mouthing off to Timotheus, like, all the time. Like, that's the only Watcher that I've seen so far that I really like. Him and Olivia, honestly. So, she's mouthing off to him, and it's like, girl, why are you... Sit down. Sit down and stop. Stop. It was just embarrassing for me to read her doing that. But I'm hoping with her finally seeing, like, that the fire god is not going to do anything good and he's going to really bring about destruction, and her finally standing up to him being like, you can't kill me, so deal with it. That's cool. And I hope that that continues. Although I do feel like she is the Bella Swan of this series. She's pregnant with like a mythological baby, of course. Like, what even? Lucia. She is just the combination of all of my least favorite tropes. I don't even know what to do with her. Ugh, Lucia. But again, I liked her the most in this book out of any of the books, so that is saying something, that she's kind of growing on me. Still not holding out hope for her though. And lastly, we have the giant cliffhanger of Asher being alive. I kind of guessed that might have happened, not so much at the beginning, but when the grandmother of Amara and Asher said that she learned that Asher was going to the same apothecary as her, that's when I was thinking, okay, that apothecary has a resurrection potion. Let's see what happens here. So, and that we hadn't seen his body, and that kept being brought up that we hadn't seen his body. So I'm really surprised. Let's see what ends up happening with this. Again, he kind of appeared to Amara, but did he appear to Amara, or was that just her psyche? Or so is he some kind of like supernatural in between? Like, what's going on with him? I do have a lot of hope though, because I wanted more from the Asher and Nick relationship. Like, I didn't want that to just go by the wayside and for Nick to suddenly act like he's 100% straight again, because totes not. But I still don't know what to expect with this. I'm not sure how it's gonna go. I'm glad that he's back. It adds a whole new twist into it. But I wasn't expecting it. But nothing's impossible in this series. People can come back from the dead. People can be turned into gods. Like, it's just craziness. So, again, not unexpected. Although I didn't see that twist coming really whatsoever. Like, I didn't think that that kind of theory would happen. And look, here we are. The last theory that I want to briefly touch on is a theory I've had since the very beginning of Fallen Kingdoms, and that is that Emilia isn't dead. I just want to bring it up because if it ends up being true, I want to be able to look back at multiple videos and be like, look at those receipts of me saying that this is how it is. I still think that Emilia's not dead. We have a couple mentions of her in this book. We still don't have any mention of like her funeral or anything like that, which I think would have been a thing. It would have been a thing if we had had her body and she was fully dead. I think we would have had a funeral. I think Gaius would have taken advantage of that. And also that we have previous evidence of the magic beans like glowing before they work. So I think in the whole turmoil, something happened and like Gaius has her or something. She's in the dungeon. I also was talking with Lainey and Riley, like I said, and they were mentioning like maybe she's Gaius and Cleo's mom's like kid and that's why he has her or something. I don't know. All these things are fine with me. I just need Emilia to actually be alive. If that doesn't come to fruition and I was wrong this whole time after like 6 books, I'm still gonna hold on to it as my own headcanon, like that she's not dead, because I honestly think she's not dead. We will see what happens. She's like an amazing archer and we don't have a funeral for her. And a lot of things we've learned about her, like, slowly just dropped in. It would be very Morgan Rhodes for her to suddenly, like, make an appearance as somebody who's not dead. So, I just want to point that out. It's a theory that I'm still holding on to. So, I pretty much talked about the plot to mix in with the characters because you really can't separate the characters from the plot anymore. But the big thing is that I am thinking still that Gaius won't make it past book 5. Like, I think the ultimate big bad is going to be all of the elemental gods, like, basically, like, titans ravaging the world. Like, that has been revealed as, like, the end game of, like, the biggest, most powerful villain. So I really hope that Gaius kind of goes by the wayside. Honestly, I feel like he's not as threatening anymore when we have these giant, like, apocalyptic threats happening. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But I feel like Gaius has ran its course, and I need him to just die. Finally. I need one of the girls to kill him, or Magnus to kill him, and then go from there. Especially now that he's married to Amara, which again, didn't see coming, didn't see her taking down her dad and all of her brothers. Like, what the heck? Even though we've seen that she's ruthless, I didn't see that coming at all. And I was kind of disappointed that the Emperor wasn't used more as a villain, because he was so big and had so much potential to really stir some things up. But again, like I said, I think the Titans are going to end up being, I call them the Titans because even though they're elementals, I refer to them as Titans because they feel like Titans to me. I feel like they're going to be the big evils. So let's just get away from everybody else and focus on them, because they are going to mess everything up, and I cannot wait. In case it wasn't already obvious, I did give Frozen Tides 5 out of 5 stars. So I think that's all I have to talk about, but comment down below and let me know what you thought of Frozen Tides, all of your theories, what you think's gonna happen, who you ship, everything. There's a lot of things to talk about with this whole series, and I've talked about a lot of it, but I know I've forgotten some stuff. So comment down below, gush with me. I'm always available to talk Fallen Kingdoms. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!